Hey, good kind people, what is going on? Yes, see, we connected. Looks like we're connected everywhere. What's good, kind people? Lee Sanders here. You're checking out an all new The RCWR Show, covering the latest in all things wrestling, entertainment, and beyond since 2011. Here we are for Tuesday night of December 14th, 2021. We are talking about that good old NWA Power Fallout for this week, season 7, episode 2. And yo, I gotta tell you, and the entire time that I've been doing these NWA Power post shows for you guys, no bull, this is probably one of the easiest. Not that anytime we're coming on and we're reacting to some of these shows that we get on a weekly basis, not that it's not easy, but this is literally one of the most easiest show recaps and reactions that I'm going to be able to give, because not really that much went down on this episode, especially as far as the in-ring action goes. So it ain't gonna get no shorter or sweeter than what you guys are gonna be getting right here. I know typically we usually do about 45 minutes, sometimes even almost an hour strong if there's any wrestling related news, especially NWA news and all that, but nothing along those lines for this week. It's just pretty much all about this episode. So yo, without any further ado, let's go ahead and let's jump right into this. Now, some of you guys may be saying, well, wait a minute, Lee, why is this going to be one of the quickest NWA reaction edition episodes? Because grand total, we only got 3 matches for this week's NWA Power. And the episode itself ran about an hour and 8 minutes, but when you minus some of the pro wrestling T-plugs, the Austin Idol, bring yourself, bring your money, come down, I'll teach you. You'll be just like me, maybe even better, right? You get past all of that and you're lucky if it maybe comes down to about 50 minutes, give or take. But no, besides 3 matches for this evening, there was a lot of talking segments, further extending some key story arcs. So I'm curious for you NWA fans, I'm curious, how did you enjoy this week's episode? If you were with it through and through, you were down for it, or if you felt that there wasn't enough in-ring action, there was a bit too much talking. I'm curious where you guys are on this one. For me, I felt it was a nice balance, although there was a part of me that was wishing there was a little bit more in-ring action, but that's just me. So, kicking off NWA Power for this week, Cal Davis is chatting it up with members of Strictly Business. And really, you had to home in on what Tom Latimer had to throw down. He pretty much laid down the gauntlet, letting Nick Aldis know, yo, whatever went down at Hard Times 2, you think you're going to be able to just ride off into the sunset and enjoy your nice wife, your kid, and get back to putting on your management suit, do your thing behind the scenes with William Corgan, Billy Corgan. You and me, we ain't done by a long shot, brother. It ain't over until I say it's over. And I tell you what, where I come from, we got a little something called the Telegraph. It's just pretty much a newspaper. And honestly, you and me ain't going to be dead until I open up that newspaper and it says Nick Aldis is dead. So that was very refreshing to hear that the feud between Aldis and Latimer is not over. I know there were some of you guys that saw Hard Times 2 that were reacting. Some of you had the same feelings I did in regards to the finish of Latimer taking on Aldis, but there were also some of you that said, no, it needed to go down that way. But I think one thing that was very unanimous for us all was that, no, this can't be over. Even if Aldis was able to beat Latimer practically, cleanly in the middle of the ring. It ain't over. These guys got to keep on going. So it's nice to see that nod that Aldis, Latimer, they're just getting started here. Things are really just starting to heat up, and it's only going to continue to elevate from here. And so I like that. Right down to the point, I like the nod that went down post-match. I know we're kind of going a little bit all over the place, but that's how this show can go sometimes, right? We just go with the flow. But to the point, Latimer made his presence felt and just had to jab or rather take that knife and just kind of ram it into the back of Nick Aldis even more, metaphorically speaking, because later on during this episode, right after the conclusion of Hex taking on Mickie James and Kiera Hogan, we saw Camille and Latimer. They were just throwing insult to injury, just throwing salt on the wound in euphoria over the fact that Mickie James particularly could not get the job done in becoming victorious in that tag match. We'll talk a lot more about that tag match there, but I was looking at this wondering if Nick Aldis was maybe going to come out, because here's Latimer kind of poking his nose in Mickie James' business, right? Mickie pretty much doesn't really have anything to do, per se, with what's going on between her husband and Latimer, but yet, and you know what? I like that we got this development that's going on here, because this could ultimately set up, and I don't know how you all would feel, but I, for one, I'd be totally down if ultimately we got an intergender tag team matchup where Camille teamed up with her soon-to-be husband and Latimer, and they went up against husband and wife Mickie James, Nick Aldis. That I just have a weird feeling. Ultimately, that's where we're gonna go, because you know that the numbers game, that's what it's always gonna come down to for the foreseeable future. And let me tell you something: the next time that Aldis and Latimer lock up, rest assured, you know Camille is going to be that smoking ace. She is going to be that factor that's going to swing the pendulum in the direction of her man. And then from there, you would just like to believe that maybe Mickie James is going to try to get involved, try to balance everything out. So we'll see how that pans out. But interesting how all of that had came about for this episode. Also, for this week's NWA Power, the father, the sinister minister, James Mitchell, with his client Judias. They chatted it up with Cal Davis. Judias, you know what? I got my wish. Because it was just a couple of weeks ago, if not 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I was here on this show and I said to you guys, I'm starting to get a little bit into the Judias character, but the one critique, the one constructive feedback that I gave was, you know what? We need to have the sinister minister, James Mitchell, do what he does best, which is tell a freaking story, get those fans in the palm of his freaking hands, and not only sell Judias, sell that next big feud, sell that program that's going on involving Judias. Get that big man over, get that story arc over. And my feedback was more sinister minister talking, because to not have him talk would just be a waste of his talents and time and everybody involved in this whole thing of trying to help elevate Judias. Remember that? I said that not that long ago. Matter of fact, after I get done with this episode, I'll see if I can backtrack and find the timestamp and all that where I was mentioning it, and I'll include it in the episode description. So it was refreshing to see Father James Mitchell out this week, more than one segment, and he's talking. So in the first half of what he laid down, he couldn't believe what he felt was a conspiracy theory that was going on at Hard Times 2, as he felt that Chris Adonis, Billy Corrigan, there we go. We got that Corrigan conspiracy yet again. And then on top of that, the referee. So think about that. We got the father, James Mitchell, saying Chris Adonis, the NWA board, Billy Corrigan, The referee, all of these guys were somehow in cahoots with putting the screws to Judias to make sure that his client in Judias would not become the new NWA national champion there, right? So he pretty much laid down the gauntlet that hell or high water, all these entities that got themselves involved with Judias's business, like, they all are gonna pay, and that no matter what, Judias is ultimately going to become the next national champion. Make no mistake about it. All of a sudden, Saul Renaro, of all people, Saul Renaro just pops up out the clear blue. I mean, we've seen Saul on TV for some consecutive weeks here. I mean, if anything, maybe 1 week might go by or something, but Saul is so fixated on joining James Mitchell and Judias. I mean, he's pretty much coming out there and he's having his meatloaf moment. And I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. No, he went above and beyond. Yeah, you won't do that. No, he did any and every goddamn thing to be paired up with Judias and Father James Mitchell. He was spitting out some, God, I don't know if he was smoking the green a little too hard or what, but he was saying to James Mitchell, he has lived in pitch black. I took down a couple of notes, but the bullet points were he has lived in pitch black for so long. He looks at the Father James Mitchell as his light. And he says, Father, let me join you. We even saw Danny Deals come out, and Danny Deals kind of like, you gotta forgive my boy. My boy's a little bit off the wagon this week. Seriously, you gotta forgive him. But no, James Mitchell pondered on that idea a little further to the point. James Mitchell popped up later on and was like, okay, all right, Saul, you say you want an opportunity to join me, join Judias and all that. We need to put you through some tests. We need to see what you can do. We need to see if you bout it. So a loyalty test is how they dubbed it. And one of the first tasks that poor Saul had to do was bark and beg like a dog. And bark and beg like a dog. He did middle of the ring on his knees, barking, begging up to Judias. So that's one. And then two, bow down and kiss the feet of Judias. I mean, not just no. He had to basically pucker them lips up and just damn near slob over the fucking shoes as he's kissing on them. And he actually did kiss on the boots and just, I mean, lips and everything was just all on Judias' boots. Just, I mean, this had some S&M type of worshiping, man. This dominatrix type of, this was on that type of level. I started to get really concerned. I'm sure many of the fans in attendance as well got a little bit concerned as well when all of a sudden we heard the sinister minister in his nice, evil little voice. He says, now that you've passed that test, there's yet another task you must do. You must assume the position. You're like, whoa, dude, whoa. I want to be part of your group, but I don't need it that damn bad. Yeah. Thank God it wasn't that position. But no, the next position was basically to sacrifice himself literally in the hands of Judias so Judias could deliver one of his high priests of punishment choke slams, which he was able to do. You would think that would be it, but no, there was actually one more test that poor Saul had to do, and that test was to drink a cup of blood, not just any blood. James Mitchell told this story about, his favorite type of blood that he likes to drink. I think he said something about Romania or whatever. Count Dracula, right? Whatever, Castlevania, whatever it is going on here. But I tell you what, whatever Saul was drinking, I know he was supposed to sell the whole, but it just looked too over the top. It just came off too comical. Not to mention whatever it was that Saul was drinking, it looked rather slushy. It looked like somebody just basically helped themselves to 7-Eleven. They got themselves a little bit of Slurpee, a little bit too much Slurpee there, and added maybe a little bit too much food coloring, right? It looks something along those lines, or somebody had some type of a nice fruity drink that was in the freezer, and but at the end of the day, Saul Renaro doing all of this, we're left with a cliffhanger as far as, okay, so is he now with the Sinister Minister and Judas, or he pretty much did all this for nothing, and James Mitchell's kind of like, you're a freak, what's wrong with you, right? We got left on a cliffhanger, so we'll probably know what's going on coming up on next week's episode, which should be interesting, because if I'm not mistaken, next week's episode is supposed to be a holiday edition of Power Surge. So your guess is as good as mine if it's going to be a case where there's going to be a whole bunch of new stuff, or if they're going to recycle some stuff that we've been seeing so far and maybe give us one or maybe two new matches if we're lucky. I'm going to watch it either way. And depending on if there's a big bulk of new stuff worth talking about next Tuesday, I'll let you guys know. But don't worry about it. We got a long way to go until next Tuesday. Meanwhile, as far as in-ring action goes, our first matchup for Power this week, Aaron Stevens and Kratos taking on JTG and Dirty Dango. Their new tag team name, they are called the Dirty Sexy Boys. The Dirty Sexy Boys. That is their new name. Aaron Stevens and Kratos picking up the dub. No thanks to Stevens in part. Stevens at one point just flipped the hell out, and he went and grabbed a microphone, and he was just putting all these big words out there and talking about how it was a travesty what's going on in today's wrestling, and he was insulted that he grabbed a microphone that had a deficiency. Right? He had a microphone that really wasn't fully operational. So he was just going off about that. And he pretty much left his man Kratos hanging. But Kratos counted the most. He pretty much was able to get the job done on his own, getting the W there for himself and Stevens. This was 7 minutes of a match. Good tag match, good tag team action for what it was worth. I really wish that JTG and Dirty Dango were not involved in this tag match. This is their first tag outing. This is their first official since Hard Times 2, and we saw the tease and everything. And then remember, it was just on last week's NWA Power that DSB get in the face of, if I'm not mistaken, they had got in the face of Luke Hawx and PJ Hawx. Remember that? And so it would have been nice to see some type of a continuation from that going into this week, rather than just have them be in this tag match where pretty much we're sacrificing you all so that Stevens and Kratos can get the dub here. But still okay. I'm still okay with it when it's all said and done, because you give me this type of Aaron Stevens that's been running around right now, pure entertainment, pure comedic gold, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we are seeing shades of Damian Sandow, but better, basically what we're getting from Stevens right now. Matter of fact, Kratos ended up talking with Mae Valentine backstage and saying to her, you know what, it's obvious that Aaron Stevens is not the same person. He's not the same guy that he was some weeks back. Look, he's looking at all kinds of weird crap on YouTube, not to my liking. Is he a little insane? Yeah, definitely. But you know what? all that matters is the W, because that's what we're all about. And these W's, they string themselves together. Whatever's going to get us one step closer to becoming tag team champions yet again. Is it a little insane mixed in with some insanity? Yeah, but that insane and correction, with that insanity and the intensity, it makes a great formula for success as far as Kratos is concerned. And I just can't help but say to myself, because the writing just feels like it's on the wall as far as, oh, Kratos, you really don't know, brother, just what you started here, because you really opened up a serious Pandora's box that is probably going to come back to really bite you in the ass here, right? You just have to wait and see on that one. There was a heart-to-heart segment with May Valentine chatting it up with Melina, getting Melina's thoughts on the match with Camille from Hard Times 2. Melina felt that she put a valiant effort out there, and yeah, she did come up short, but that she's not done just yet. You know, so many people, they have been doubting her in recent years, and she's always been able to prove the naysayers wrong. And it pretty much leads her to a point where she says somehow she's going to get another opportunity to become an NWA Women's Champion. Somehow she will not only get another championship opportunity, but she will also become champion in the progress. And May wanted to find a little bit more out as far as what exactly Melina's game plan is, as Melina started being cryptic all of a sudden, but she wouldn't divulge any more information there. It's just kind of one of those, you're going to have to wait and see. But to hear Melina pretty much say, yeah, by all intents and purposes, I mean, you could take what she said to May a couple of different ways. If you want to take it as Melina's not done with Camille just yet, that's one way you could look at it. Another way that you could look at it is, okay, obviously Melina wants to be the NWA Women's Champion. Will it happen? We'll have to wait and see. But she feels the way she's coming off very laser focused right now as far as becoming the NWA Women's Champion. So that's kind of one of those to be continued. Meanwhile, we are just waiting in the wings right now to find out where is that next challenger going to be coming from that's going to be stepping up to the plate and saying to Camille, yo, I got next. What's the deal? From there, the End. Interesting development with the End, as Pharaoh is doing most of the talking here, and he realizes that the new trend that's going on now is trios tag teams and all that, and you pretty much see 6-man tag team action and all that. So he's trying to get in on that, and he decided to extend a business relationship / olive branch to one Jax Dane, and Jax Dane accepted. Jax Dane, he still has that championship series opportunity, and he can cash it in on any champion or championship at any time, his place of choosing. So keeping that in mind, and now you're adding Jax Dane with the End. That's going to be one hell of a wrecking ball trios tag team. I can't wait to see the three of those men in action, and just how well I already know they're going to be gelling pretty damn well together. But Jax Dane and the End, yo, that's going to be just straight up physically brutal in a good way. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to be able to do as far as wrecking havoc in the NWA here, or as Jax Dane had put it, NWA size matters. We were talking about that tag team matchup from earlier in regards to Mickie James, Kiera Hogan. I thought it was a little bit interesting what was going on with this tag match, and I felt it was by design, some of the stuff that I was seeing with this tag match, because all throughout this tag match, we could hear Mickie James yelling audibles at Kiera. It wasn't one of those, do this, do that. It was more of it felt more like you got this. Yeah, very good, very good. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Now go to the top row. Go to the top row, right? It was kind of one of those type of, but Kiera was just doing every single thing. And maybe you could make the argument that's because, after all, Mickie James, you look at the storyline and how it imitates real life per se. Kiera, getting her training and all that from Mickie when she was first starting up and everything. So obviously she idolizes Mickie, would pretty much do any and everything for Mickie. And so, maybe that gullibleness is kind of what was being on display here in this tag match here. But we saw Kiera just continuing to be so laser focused on doing everything that Coach Mickie was calling for in the corner and worrying so much about pleasing Mickie James that ultimately it got her in some serious crosshairs with the Hexus, Allison Kay, and Marty Bell. And from there, you just ultimately had a communication breakdown. The key point really came towards the end of the match. And this match itself, all these matches, these 3 matches for what it was worth that we had on this week's NWA Power, very short. The first match, which we already told you about, that one ran about 7 minutes. This tag match right here with Kiera and James taking on the Hex, that ran 7 minutes. The main event match, if we're lucky, that went about 5, maybe 6 minutes tops. But closing moments for the NWA women's tag match there, championship there, both girls, Kiera and Mickie, they went on opposite ends of the turnbuckles, and they were getting ready to go for a high-risk double-team maneuver on Allison Kay when Marty Bell, I think Marty Bell was on the side where Mickie was, pretty much stopped her. Allison Kay was able to derail Kiera Hogan, and they just pretty much, once Mickie James was off that top rope and she pretty much was incapacitated, they pretty much double teamed on Kiera Hogan. Hex marks the spot, and that pretty much was it. They retained their championships and they pretty much rolled out. We already mentioned how Camille and Tom Latimer crashed the scene afterwards, but after that, we saw Kiera just chewing into Mickie James. She was just berating Mickie, saying, I did everything that you had asked of me to do. You told me to go up to the top turnbuckle. I did what you told me to do. And so she was pretty livid, right? She's taking this frustration out on the loss, on Mickie and everything. And I like that little development there because honestly, I think one of the best kind of feuds that they've got going on there in NWA that they've honestly cleverly been building up so far has been Mickie James and Kiera Hogan. And I like everything that's been happening with these two women these past couple of months here. And for Kiera to feel the way that she feels, you had Mickie try to be very diplomatic, try to calm Kiera down, but no, Moss wasn't able to do it there. So, now you can't help but wonder, if some time will go by and if it'll be enough for a cooler head on Kiera Hogan. Okay, yeah, you know what? I let my attitude get the best of me. Heat of the moment. Sorry about that. Or are we gonna ultimately see a Kiera Hogan snap yet again on Mickie James? I'm going with the latter on that one. So sound off. Let me know what you guys think, especially how you've been enjoying these seeds that's been planted so far in Mickie James and Kiera Hogan. From there, Cal Davis was chatting it up with Austin Idol, Black G's, Tyrus, Jordan Clearwater. Austin Idol had made a big announcement that Black G's has now become junior executive of Idolmania Sports Management.
So what does that mean? That basically means, per Black G's, that he can go out there, he can sign and recruit any talent, provide any opportunity. And one of the first people that he signed to his division is Marshe Rockett, as he feels that Marshe Rockett is a man that has quietly continued to be overlooked, one of the most underrated talents on the NWA roster. Marshe Rockett is pretty much now part of Idolmania Sports Management there. So they are continuing to grow in numbers there, continuing to grow in power there. So some interesting stuff that went down there. Also, there was a little bit of a tease for not next week, because remember, that's a Power Surge episode. So I wouldn't expect it to go down on that episode. If anything, maybe the week after. But Black G's had a message for Zion, which was, okay, you said last week you would do anything to get another opportunity to face Tyrus for the TV championship. Got something special for you. You'll have to find out on next week's NWA Power. That was the setup. And remember, next week is supposed to be Power Surge. So is it going to happen on Power Surge, or is it truly going to happen on the next NWA Power? Have that in the back of your mind there. Billy Corrigan, chatted it up with Cal Davis next. Basically, Corrigan was addressing the fact that Mike Knox is in NWA. He cleared the air on that. He said, look, Mike Knox, he is not officially part of the NWA roster. He is sanctioned to be there, though. He realizes that it makes a lot of folks uncomfortable, the roster management and everything. He realizes what happened with Pulp and everything. He was there when Pulp had to be stretchered out of Hard Times 2, and you know, he realizes all the controversy that is surrounding Mike Knox and everything, but that Mike Knox pretty much came to the NWA at his invitation, and pretty much Billy Corrigan, for all intents and purposes, doubled down and said he doesn't regret, and he knows it's going to probably ruffle some feathers in the back, but he stands by his decision. So that in mind, this had pretty much set up Mike Knox and Matt Cardona coming out. Now, it turns out Mike Knox, he was supposed to have a match with Pulp, but because of what went down at Hard Times 2, that ain't happening. So Cal Davis did a pretty good job interviewing Cardona and Mike Knox and trying to get down to the heart of the matter of why they appeared and everything. He was mainly getting 2 cents from Cardona. Cardona pretty much said, look, my fiance Chelsea Green, she's here in the NWA. Hey, Mike Knox, he's here in the NWA, and me and Mike Knox, we go back like 20 years. That's my bestie. We go way back. And when it came to the 10 pounds of gold, holding that up in the air, what was that about? Cal Davis posing that question. Cardona, just wanted to see if it actually weighed 10 pounds. And yeah, it did, right? Right, Mike? Mike's like, nah, I actually kind of felt like 12 pounds. Damn thing was so heavy. I damn near messed up my arm again, messing around with that. But Mike Knox, he pretty much came for Trevor Murdoch. He got what he wanted, did what he did with the Pulp, and he hopes that Pulp does not try to come after him less than 100%, because he promises that if Pulp pops up, he ain't at 100%, he's gonna pretty much own his ass again and drive him to the hospital his damn self. This pretty much had set up a Mike Knox open challenge. Anybody that felt froggy, they wanted some, come get some. Mims would actually respond to the challenge. So it ended up being Mike Knox and Mims going at it. If we're lucky, this was probably about, it might have, somewhere between 4 to 6 minutes tops of a match. You know, nice little bit of offense from Mims and everything, but big man Mike Knox pretty much owning Mims to close out NWA Power. I tell you what really kind of surprised me there a little bit. I was quite taken back by how well of a talker Mike Knox is, because you guys got to forgive me, but you know, if you were to tell me, but Mike Knox has been tearing it up in New Japan, like, I don't watch New Japan on a regular basis. The last time I was seeing Mike Knox on a regular basis, I was seeing Mike Knox in WWE, and as many of us know, Mike Knox really was not a talkative person in WWE there. You know, he pretty much was just popping in. Yeah, I kind of looked at him as almost another version of Snitsky before the baby punt stuff had went into effect and all that. You know, he was kind of that retro. And then, of course, Aces and Eights, right? Everybody remembers Mike Knox from Aces and Eights. But he really wasn't, not to my knowledge. I mean, you all would have to walk me down memory lane, but he really wasn't truly one of the, for me at least, one of the focal points in Aces and Eights. It was really all about Devon, Bully Ray, who else? Garrett Bischoff. Who else was Taz, when Taz started doing his thing in that. Who else was Aces and Eights, by the way? I'm just kind of going down memory lane. I'm trying to think who else was Ace. D'Lo Brown, Doc. Oh yeah. Mr. Anderson was actually part of Aces and Eights too. So yeah, I don't really remember Mike Knox truly having one of those standalone arcs while he was in TNA there. So I was really taken back, to my point. I was really taken back by how good of a talker he came off on this episode of Power. I was like, okay, he's got the chops. I've got a little bit concerned, I gotta say. That's pretty much the talk of NWA, but I'm really concerned about the championship run of Trevor Murdoch, and I would love to hear from you NWA fans. Where I'm starting to have a little bit of concern for Trevor Murdoch, it's just really starting to feel as if Trevor Murdoch, but most importantly, the 10 pounds of gold, is starting to become secondary to, you know, these other stars that's now coming into the NWA, and it just leaves me kind of puzzled. Not confused, but just a little bit puzzled and kind of wondering if Billy and them are kind of aware of how the optics are kind of coming off so far. I mean, look, I would like to believe, in all honesty, that these guys, they know what they're doing and everything will come together in due time. But, you know, it just feels like ever since Trevor Murdoch has won the 10 pounds of gold there from Nick Aldis, it has just felt like, okay, great, you're the champion. So we got this guy, right? You understand what I'm saying? That's how it's really been feeling, right? You know, you got Mike Knox, now you got Matt Cardona. You just can't help but go, all right, so what other outsider is maybe going to infiltrate the NWA next? And, right, but it just, we got to be careful. We got to be careful here with this story arc that we're trying to tell here of Trevor Murdoch as the champion and everything, because we keep going on this pace, it's going to be very, very easy to just have that man and that most important championship there of such rich history basically be secondary to everything else that's, you know, going on with this star coming in and that star coming in and all of that. It just feels like it's a little bit too much in the foreshadow. Or rather in the background of the shadows right now is how it's feeling. I could be wrong on that. Sound off, let me know. I'm most curious. Other than that, that pretty much is it. No NWA news. You know, relatively quiet for this week, especially going into the Christmas holiday. So, hey, programming note, I'll be back with you guys on Wednesday night, December 15th, 2021. We'll be on after AEW's Winter is Coming event goes off the air. I was kind of thinking about it a little bit more. I think all we're going to do is just talk strictly AEW. We're just going to do nothing but winter is coming. We'll show all the love to that. And, maybe we'll get into a little bit of wrestling, a little tidbit news afterwards. But be a nice, fun, laid-back show. So if you're around Wednesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, come hang out, and should be a fun show. You guys made it up to this point. You haven't done so already. Please make sure, if you haven't done so already, hit that like button. When you do that, it really helps spread the word about our content, especially episodes like this. So if you're checking this out, you happen to be an NWA fan, hitting that like button really does wonders as far as helping more NWA fans be able to discover content like this, our channel, and all of that. And if you haven't done so, hit that subscribe button and click the bell notifications for all, so you know about every single piece of content that's going to be coming your way. All right. And that's going to do it. So, I tried to stretch it out as best as I could. This easily could have been like a 20-minute joint, but this nice little bite-sized 40-minute, that should really suffice. Get at me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Use the keywords, the RCWR show. And until next go round, I'm wishing all of you all to be safe, and most importantly, be kind to one another. I will see you guys this Wednesday night for our Winter is Coming AEW post-show edition. Till then, take care, y'all.